Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. As I stated in the last few videos, I have ordered a glass for a bunch of new aquariums. 6 of them actually. And they're going to go on the second level of the new rack. And also, I'm going to be running most of them, I think probably about 5, with underground filters. Now, I don't want to make them all the same, so I'm going to do a bunch of different modifications. And also because I built this arbor, you know, kid with a new toy kind of thing, I am going to test it out as much as I can in this video. But also there's another thing I want to do. When I started doing the underground filter, the first one, I got a lot of really interesting suggestions, and some of them are actually things that I would actually like to do. So what I'm going to do for these 5, well, not all of them obviously, but for some of them, what I'm going to do is put it out that in the comments below, if you have suggestions for modifications to an underground filter. Not stuff that you're guaranteed working. I mean, obviously, a lot of the suggestions I have gotten to this point were the standard kind of things, different kinds of media, different kinds of flow rates, all that sort of stuff. Ignoring that kind of thing, if you can come up with something interesting, a build that I can do, especially if it's a build I can do, that would be really kind of cool. And I don't want it just to be something that is guaranteed to work. And as we go through this video, you're going to see what I mean. I'm not talking about... you'll understand as we go along. So anyway, as you can see by the tube of acrylic there, this is a larger diameter than I turned last. So this is going to put as much stress as I can on this arbor and to see if it works properly. And also I've doubled the number of pieces of acrylic in here. Like I said, I want to test this out. I want to be able to mass produce a bunch of stuff. And as you can see, I've had to put a longer rod in to make it fit. But it turned really well. I mean, there was no issues whatsoever. So I've turned this down to the outer diameter. But the other neat thing about arbors is I should be able to take these off and put them back on and be able to work with them. So that's the important detail here. It's not just like a one-shot deal. So I'm going to take these off. I think about half of them are going to be left at this diameter anyway, and then the rest I'm going to put back on the arbor and put back in the lathe and see how well it adapts to that sort of thing. So those 3 are done, and I've also turned down 2 pieces of acrylic there. I'm not going to go through all the details of showing you everything because it gets kind of repetitive. I don't really want to do that. So I've taken it off, and now of course because there's fewer pieces of acrylic in here, I'm going back to the shorter rod. These are all just kinds of things that I'm trying out, and like I said, trying to test this as a possibility for machining acrylic quickly, so I can you know, do a bunch of knockoffs of this sort of thing. It's not necessary really. I mean, if besides building all these underground filters, I don't think I'm going to be really doing an awful lot with it, but I like to develop techniques as I go along, things I can use later on for other things. So here it is back on the lathe, and as you can see, it turns quite well. It went back, obviously not completely true. You can see a bit of vibration there, but because I'm not machining this for anything that delicate, it has to be in the ballpark, and this is definitely fine. And now I'm just going to turn this down so that the 2 on the outside that you see there are going to fit inside quite nice and easily, and the last one's just going to be a cap. And it's very, very easy to machine this. Again, like I said before, you just have to be very careful not to create too much heat, because the acrylic will definitely just melt. There you go, fits on nice and snug, which is what I want. Nice thing about when I build things for myself is I don't mind things having a really tight friction fit. It's a bit more finicky when I do it for other people because it has to fit on and off without, you know, too much effort. So there we go. These are the pieces. I'm really happy with this arbor. It's worked out quite well. It's certainly got enough meat to it that it can handle like a little bit extra plastic like this, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to pull this off, and this is actually one other thing I found kind of interesting about extruded acrylic. It's not always exactly the same all the way around. See how a little tight that is? And it just pops right on this side. It's just the way it is. It has a certain tolerance, and the tolerance is not the same as the friction fit, that's for sure. So that's going to be a chamber. That chamber is going to fit on the pipe, and it's bigger than the other one, and it can hold a lot more media, a sponge or whatever. But there's also going to be something else different I want to do about it, and you'll see as we go along. So this is another way of doing this. These are the ones I've machined down to friction fit diameter. And what I want to be able to do is put a piece of material in between here that has a fairly fine mesh, like in this case it's going to be nylon window screening, and I want to be able to like put charcoal in here or something else. These are the kinds of ideas I'm hoping you guys can help me with. Different kinds of things that can be done with this. So I'm going to do here the other thing I want to show you is everything I do doesn't always turn out perfect the first time, or even good sometimes. And this is my first attempt at putting a piece of screen in. And the problem with the screen is slightly slightly thicker in diameter than what the methylene chloride is comfortable gluing. So when I put it on the first time, I had to add an extra amount of methylene chloride, and it wasn't really wicking the way I wanted it to. It wasn't setting up the way I wanted it to, so I had to put a bit of pressure on it. So I put it in a vise and let it cure that way. And the end result is it just didn't look well to me. I didn't like the look of it. I mean, it was fine. It holds together. It's doing everything it needs to do. But you'll see in a second here after I'm finished fiddling with this, it just, you see those bubbles? For some reason, it just bothered me. I didn't like the look of it. The other one's so nice and clean, and I much prefer that. So what I thought I would do is I put the lathe back, put the arbor back together, turn down a bunch more pieces. The neat thing was, now that I've got the process down, it took me only about 40 minutes to do all of them, which is kind of good. It's getting better anyway. So what I'm going to do now, instead of putting that smaller piece of screen in, I'm going to try and just attach a screen like to the whole piece. The piece is going to be turned down to the size of the actual inside diameter, and then I'm going to fit it on. Hopefully that'll look better. You never know really with these things. This is kind of the process I go through when I like prototype things. Like, I have no idea what it's going to look like when it comes when it's finished, but I want it to look nice. I mean, the one on the right there looks really nice, and that's the way I want this to look. So I'm going to put the screen on here, and instead of putting another piece of acrylic on top, I'm just going to flood it with methylene chloride, which will soften up the surface of the acrylic, and then it's going to put another plate on top, and then put a pair of vice grips on that, let it cure for not very long, like about a minute and a half, and then take it off and trim it to size afterwards. It worked okay. You can see where the actually it will be in a minute. You can see where the acrylic has kind of squeezed through and stuck to the piece of aluminum. It doesn't look perfect, but like I said, this is the kind of thing I do to test stuff out and see how it looks. And definitely leave me your opinion below of which of the two you like. I think possibly what I'm going to do, instead of these two types of builds, I'm going to use a very large open pore sponge, make a circle out of it, and just fit it into the one that's sitting there on the on the top of the screen, because I still just don't like the look of this. But as things go along, maybe you guys will have some suggestions that will work out as well. So I'm just going to put this together now to show you what I meant by a mod for an underground filter, and that will help you with your ideas. I've just made a small little tray. It has 2 holes in it with a nice trough underneath, and that's going to allow me to run water up this pipe. It's going to sit on top of where the gravel is going to go, and then there's going to be another pipe on the other side where the chamber is going to sit, and that will draw water down through it instead of up, and that way you don't have to worry about bubbles and things not working properly. And anyways, just like I said, it's just an idea, and I know the undergarlic filter part will work fine, so this modification won't really hinder anything, but it may not do anything to help. And that's the kind of ideas I'm looking for, so if you guys can think of stuff that works along these lines, that would be great. And as always, if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe, and like I said, hit me with your ideas. I really like that part of this whole process, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you say in the comments. And so this is kind of like a neat kind of thing. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.